Hello everyone. Welcome back to my channel. Learn and practice to get more and more better results.
In today's video, we are going to talk about learning new words and some tips and tricks that can really help you with this. Okay? So English has one of the world's largest vocabularies. And every year there are more and more words that come into the English language. So every year I learn new words, and every year I hope you learn new words too. So in this video, I'm going to talk about how we can really learn all these new words well, and how we can get a really deep understanding of these words and really know what they mean. Okay, so to get started, I've drawn a beautiful picture of a guy who kind of looks like Charlie Brown. And I have here his skull is open, and you can see at the top, I don't know if you realize what that is, but that's his brain. And the reason I've drawn this is because when we're learning new words, what we're really doing is we're taking new words and we're putting them into our brains. And we're storing them in different ways, okay? So what we want to do is we want to find the best way that makes our brain really happy when we're learning these words, because that will help us remember them better and learn them better. So I'm going to talk about maybe a word that I learned recently, and I want you to think about maybe the last word you learned, okay? Because that will help you in this video to think about a word that you have learned recently. The word I learned recently was binge watch, and I'll be talking about this word to give examples when we talk about how to help your brain learn new English words. So there are 4 areas we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be talking about meaning, and that's like, understanding a word, understanding it and knowing how to use it and when to use it. We're going to talk about spelling. A lot of people don't know this, but spelling is very important when you're learning new words, and I'll tell you why. We're going to talk about pronunciation, which is another key and another very important area of learning new words. And then the grammar of the words, okay, which is also very important. Each of these areas, meaning, spelling, pronunciation, and grammar, each of these are ways your brain stores a new word, okay? So that's why each of them is very important. Your brain, when you learn a new word, it stores it based on the meaning, on the spelling, on the pronunciation, and on the grammar. So that's why we're going to look at each of these areas today and think about them when we're learning a new word. So let's get started with meaning. Okay, so the first thing we're going to talk about is a word's meaning. Okay, what does it mean? So this is, of course, very important when you're learning a new word because, without knowing the meaning, how can you use the new word, right? So I have here some questions that I like to ask myself when I'm learning new words, because it helps me to think about what's important about the word, and also it helps me to make more connections with the word, and that will help me remember the word more. Okay, so first of all, I like to ask myself when I see a word, maybe that I kind of know, how well do I know this word? Do I know it really well? Do I use it all the time already? Have I never seen this word before? Maybe I've seen this word before, but I don't know what it means. Or maybe I kind of know what it means, but I'm not really comfortable with it. Okay, so I usually ask myself, if I see a word, have I seen it before? Can I guess what it means? Okay. Do I understand the word? And this is different than can I use the word? Because when we're talking about understanding, we're talking about, reading. When you look in a book and you see the word written, can you understand what it says? And we're also talking about listening. When you hear someone say it, do you know what they're saying? Do you understand the word when they're using it in a sentence? So we have understand, which is about reading and listening. And then we have using it. Can I use the word? And this is, can I use the word in conversation or when I talk? Can I use the word in writing? So you might be able to use the word in some of these, but not all. For example, maybe you can use the word in conversation, but you can't write it. Or maybe you can understand the word when somebody says it, but you don't know how to spell it, you can't read it. Okay, so you want to look at all of these areas when you're learning a new word. You want to be able to read it, to listen to it, to say it, as well as to write it. And each of these will help make more connections to the word. Another important thing to do when you're learning a new word is, can you make a definition in your own words? Okay, so a lot of students will look in a dictionary and they'll look at the new word and then they'll just write out the dictionary's definition. But a lot of the times when you look at a dictionary's definition, it's very confusing and it's filled with a whole bunch of other words that you might not know. So a better thing to do is write a simple definition in your own words. Okay, so for example, I learned the word binge watch or binge watching. So what does this word mean? Well, I might write something like it means to watch too many episodes of a show in one setting. And I might give an example. Game of Thrones. If you have watched all of season 1 in one day, that's binge watching. Or maybe you like another show and you just sit in one sitting and you stay on your couch all day and you just keep watching episodes. That's binge watching. And this is something I hate to admit, but I do a lot. So binge watching is a word I probably will use a lot in my life. So can I read this word? Yes, if I see it, I can understand it in reading. If somebody says the word, I can understand it in listening. I can use it in a conversation, and I can also use it in writing. So I feel pretty comfortable using this word. Another thing I might ask when I'm learning a new word is I might think about the synonyms. So what's a synonym? A synonym is a word, a different word that has the same meaning as the word you're interested in. So for example, maybe you learned the word smart. What's a synonym of smart? What means the same thing? Intelligent. Okay, so these are synonyms. They have the same meaning. Another example would be small and little. Those two words have the same meaning. So they're synonyms. So it's good to find out synonyms for your word because the more connections you have to a word, the more you will remember it. Okay, and you can use synonyms when you make your own definition. That can be very helpful. Now the opposite of a synonym is an antonym. So antonym means the opposite. It's good to also know if there is an opposite of your word, what's the opposite? So for example, the opposite of big is small. For binge watch, there's not exactly an opposite, but I might say doing something in moderation. Moderation is the opposite of binging. When you're doing a lot, whereas moderation, it's more balanced. Okay, it might not be an exact opposite, but it's good to try to think about antonyms or the opposite of the word you're looking at. Another important thing is, are there other meanings for this word? Okay, English is a tricky language because each word you look at often has many meanings. Just look at the word get, okay? Get up, get down, get over. There are so many meanings to the word get, and that's one of the most used words in English. So it's good to know some other meanings of the word you're interested in, especially if it has any embarrassing meanings, okay? Because a lot of words in English have, maybe they have their normal meaning, but they might also have like an embarrassing meaning or a sexual meaning or something else. So it's good to also know that. You might not want to use that word in that way, but just so you understand it better, so that you're not in any embarrassing situations. Like I'll give you an example. Make out has multiple meanings. You can ask somebody, how did you make out? And that can mean two things. How did you make out can mean like, how did something go? So imagine you did a presentation. Oh, how did you make out? Was your presentation good? Oh yes, it went well. But make out can also mean like to kiss passionately. In the movie, these two people were making out. So it's good to know if the word you're interested in has another, like, different meaning that might be embarrassing in some situations. And if you do say something embarrassing, it happens all the time. It's okay. You should have seen when I was first learning French and Spanish, the number of embarrassing mistakes I made. It just felt like every time I said anything in either of those languages, it was always either accidentally sexual or accidentally embarrassing. Okay, so it happens, and all you can do is laugh it off. All right, so we've talked a lot about meaning, and again, this is very important for learning new words.